How many of you feel like we are experiencing a 2020 hangover? Well, your question may be, what do you mean by a 2020 hangover? Meaning that the events of 2020 are still lingering in 2021. Well, to be honest, life is a marathon, not a sprint. Life is a long and arduous race with peaks and valleys, times in which you feel like you can run forever and times in which you feel like you cannot go on. But go on we must. Despite life's challenges and the difficulties in the race, we must keep running. We must keep moving forward. One thing I find incredibly fascinating about the scriptures is that it describes the faith journey as a race. Listen to these verses. Don't you realize that in a race everyone runs, but only one person gets the prize? So run to win. Another passage says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up. And let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. You see, life is a race. And the next passage is the Apostle Paul reflecting on the end of his life. He says, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race, and I have remained faithful. Our goal is to say the same thing at the end of our lives. Now, anyone who has ran a marathon will tell you that it is not easy to do. In fact, marathon runners spend months training to run the arduous 26.2 miles it takes to finish a marathon. In fact, it is so difficult that only 0.5% of the US population has ever finished a marathon. It is not easy. Likewise, life is like a marathon. As stated already, it is a long, arduous, and often difficult journey that will test your will to keep running. So the question is, how do we continue to successfully run life's journey? How do we run to win? The answer is simple, but not easy to do. We must have faith. Now, what is faith? Faith is being sure of the things we hope for and knowing that something is real even if we do not see it. For example, it is by faith we understand that the whole world was made by God's command, so what we see was made by something that cannot be seen. So again, how do we demonstrate faith as we run life's journey? How do we keep running the faith race when life is challenging, when events do not appear to change, when life seems difficult? We do so by keeping our eyes on inspirational characters, people who have successfully finished life's race and have won, people that are examples. Now, one of the verses we read in Hebrews chapter 12 says this, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses. Now, your question may be, who are these crowd of witnesses that the writer of this verse is speaking? They are the champions of the faith that are described in Hebrews chapter 11. I recommend that you read it. Men like Abraham, who placed his trust in a faithful God, who told him he would have a child in his old age, a child who would significantly bless the world. Now, God was faithful and blessed Abraham with Isaac, who was in the family tree of Jesus, the one who came to save the world. So God kept his promise to Abraham by giving him a child that would ultimately birth Jesus, who came to save the world. However, Abraham faced a few challenges as he waited for God to fulfill his promise. Think about this. When life is challenging and things are not going the way we would like them to go, it may seem easier to quit the race, to throw in the towel, to deny that God even exists. When there are political divisions, massive social instability, and a relentless pandemic that is taking lives, it may seem easier to ask God, where are you in all of this mess? 2021 is supposed to be different. But things seem to be getting worse, let's be honest. So the question could be, where is God in all of this mess? My friend, please listen to this carefully. Faith is not strengthened when things are going well, but it is tested and strengthened when things are not going well. This is where faith is challenged. The question is, do you believe in God when he seems incredibly distant, when he is not answering your prayers? That is when faith is strengthened, because it challenges whether you will trust him when he is not doing what you believe is best. That is when we fix our eyes on inspirational characters, people who believed God when things were not going well. Think about this. God promised Abraham a child that would make a difference in the world, and it did not happen for 25 years. In fact, Abraham was 75 years old when he was told he was going to have a child. In my personal life, I watched my sister want a child for years with her husband, and she prayed and prayed, and God said no. She even considered spending $22,000 for fertility treatments, but decided not to go that route because she wanted to place her faith in God. God said no to my sister Tiffany for 11 years. You see, God was testing her faith to see if she would continue to believe in him if he continued to say no. But she continued to believe, and God blessed her with little Anthony Raymond Stokes Jr. He was born prematurely, but he is doing extremely well. She is now an inspirational character that I look to when I am running my faith race. Second, we successfully run the faith race by keeping our eyes on inspirational communities. We keep our eyes on inspirational communities. Again, verse 1 in Hebrews chapter 12 says this: "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses." Now, what does that mean? This verse carries the idea of being in a stadium surrounded by a group of people who are cheering you on to finish the race. This is where my love for physical running and my faith race are similar. In 2019, I was running the San Diego half marathon. Now, the challenge with this half marathon is that it ends with a long hill. So at the 11th, 12th, and 13th mile, when you are tired, you have this long, slowly developing hill that goes on for about 2 miles. Well, during the race, two of my run teams, the San Diego Track Club and the Turtles, were about at mile 11. When I heard them cheering from a distance, it put a pep in my step. I began to run a little faster with my head held high. And just as I approached them, one of the runners began to run with me, furiously shaking this cowbell, telling me to keep going while others told me that I was doing well. It was one of the most inspirational things I've experienced in my life. And I was tired. I mean, tired beyond the word tired. And having that group of people cheer me on gave me the ability to finish that race with my head held high. Likewise, in our faith race, we not only have the believers that are in Hebrews chapter 11, but we have the faith communities that encourage us to trust God when everything around us tells us not to trust. You see, my friend, that is faith. Trusting God when it is very difficult to trust God. In fact, one of the primary reasons I believe that I've been able to maintain faith in 2020 and 2021, despite the challenges we all continue to face, is because I have two supportive faith teams. On Saturday mornings, I meet with a group of faith marathoners who have faced some of the most painful life challenges, but they still trust God. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I pray with and study the scriptures with a group of faith runners. They are like the run groups that have helped me finish multiple half marathons and a marathon. And last but not least, we successfully run the faith race by keeping our eyes on an inspirational Christ. We keep our eyes on an inspirational Christ. Now think about this. In any race, there are times when you will want to quit. I must admit that 2020 was like that for me. I experienced many challenging emotions: anger, sadness, frustration, and even depression. I was sad when Kobe Bryant died in a tragic accident. I was frustrated when I witnessed COVID-19 take the lives of thousands as parts of our population acted like it did not exist. I was angry when I witnessed the death of George Floyd and encouraged when I watched the world protests. And I was frustrated and angry as I watched powerful leaders aggressively attack our democratic process. 2020 was a tough year, and some of its consequences still linger in 2021. Why? Because life is a marathon. But despite those challenges, I did not allow myself to inappropriately express my emotions. Why? Because I looked to an inspirational Christ who never gave up. In fact, this was written about him. It says, "So let us run the race that is before us and never give up. We should remove from our lives anything that would get in the way and the sin that so easily hold us back. Let us look only to Jesus, the one who began our faith and who makes it perfect. He suffered death on the cross, but he accepted the shame as if it were nothing because of the joy that God put before him. And now he is sitting at the right side of God's throne." Think about Jesus' example. He held on while wicked people were doing evil things to him. So do not get tired and stop trying. My friend, we must keep our eyes on Jesus, who successfully finished the faith race before him. Remember this: no matter how tough life gets, keep running, keep your eyes on an inspirational character, someone who has struggled like you but kept going. Second, keep your eyes on an inspirational community, a team of people that will cheer you on, and keep your eyes on an inspirational Christ, the Anointed One, who was an inspirational example to everyone who endures to the end. My friend, Jesus was our perfect example because he reminds us of that person that's waiting for us at the finish line when we're tired and we want to quit, and we think about how we're going to feel when we finish. Thinking about that person gives us the strength to keep running. It gives us the ability to keep going. Likewise, look to Jesus Christ, my friend, the author and the finisher of our faith. God bless you, and keep running.